Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. It is the middle of summer. It is still hazy and smoky in Buffalo. It's 110 degrees for the 19th straight day in Arizona. Just another reason why I would never want to live in Arizona. But in the winter, sure. And, a lot of stuff going on in the world, but we'll confine ourselves to talking about the world of hockey. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So, let's talk about artificial intelligence, but I'm not talking about it in like the medical field. What I am going to talk about it is in the entertainment and even in the literary field. So, I recently did just get a press release from a, PR agency that says, hey, do you want to talk to this AI expert? Because he could tell you how AI is going to save like Hollywood money and blah, 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 and how it's going to do all these things. And obviously, the actors don't want that. And right now, writers are on strike because, they're at risk too. And Kevin, we're at risk too in the future if all of a sudden companies are going to let this AI just run wild and just, it could sample all kinds of stuff from books that we've written. And so, I'm completely against that. And I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I support, the writers right now in Hollywood because they're the first line. Like they're the first ones that are putting up a fight against this. And again, I don't know about Kevin because he's a little more prolific, but a lot of times a book takes a year to write. And a lot of it, maybe a little of it is borrowed from some other books, but a lot of it is proprietary. And I would just hate for someone to all of a sudden just write a script and it's like, hey, look, it's from my book, but now they don't have to pay me for a script. Something like that, Kev. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I mean, we'd already seen that, and we were seeing it at the college level as well. Like we've all read stories about, professors that have to have a software that, searches the internet to make sure that they're not plagiarizing someone. But, the problem you're going to run into is that the way that I understand artificial intelligence is over time, it just gets better and better to the point where they're going to be able to take our stuff and then rewrite it in such a way that we won't recognize it. Right. So that's the problem. They'll just take that knowledge and file it away and, then start to regurgitate that. And when I've heard what the actors are complaining about, it seems like a legitimate beef. Like what their concern is that once you do a movie, that the movie company has the right then to take your image and then reproduce it through AI, and you could be in a crowd scene of 10 other movies and not get any residuals for that.
Which is sort of what they did. I mean, and not the rights issue, but Russ, you saw the movie The Flash, and they cut in not Christopher Reeve, but Reeve.
Well, we won't give away the names, but they old time.
Yeah, but okay, they cut in a lot of old Batmans and old Supermans and old. Right. And it's like, okay, that's fine as sort of an homage, but I'm sure.
Did they not pay them for that? Did they not pay them?
I don't know.
Right. I would assume under the current agreement that they were, but who knows? That's the whole thing. I'll give you one example, though, because it's funny. Like when Brad Treliving was hired as the Leafs GM, a friend of mine, this was a couple days after, and a friend of mine was all impressed with I think it's Chat GPT app to write like stories based on like just inputting basic information. They said, who is the new Leafs GM? So it chewed on it for 45 seconds, and then it spit out a 500-word story about the new Leafs GM. Problem was, it didn't say that Brad Treliving was the new Leafs GM. It said it was like Steve something or other. It's like, okay, where the hell did it get that? Because this guy, it wasn't like they said Jim Gregory was the new Leafs GM because he used to be one in the past. It was like a completely made up name. So yeah, it gets better. It learns. It's a learning computer. Right. It's a learning program. But yeah, I can understand why they're striking.
Yeah, no, for sure. But the problem you're talking about, won't exist, a month or two from now. I mean, right. They're just making such advances in that area. And in fact, I saw just a tremendous report by a guy who is a reporter in the field who had a conversation with a new artificial intelligence, box, kind of a Siri style conversation. Right. And he said it was downright scary because essentially he was talking about purchasing a gift for his wife. And by the end of the conversation, the AI was trying to talking into getting rid of his wife. And he said it was just a ridiculous mention. The story is on CNN if you want to look it up. It's really incredible. What went on, to the point where he, at the end, he was given this device to sort of review, and he basically called the company and said, this thing has learned too much. Now it's so anyway, it's really a bizarre situation, and we've all seen enough movies to know that's how the world ends. It's
like, I know that's it's the logical or maybe the illogical next step, but it's like this is Cyberdyne Systems taking over the computers and launching nuclear war against the Russians, and it's like, let's kill all the humans because the machines have taken over. That sounded ridiculous.
I'm not going there, guys. All I talked about.
I am. I'm scared. I'm scared shitless. Okay. All right. Let me bring up one
here. This part of the conversation.
Yeah, there you go. Let me bring up this before we start. So it is 12 days before the Major League Baseball trade deadline, and I'm not 100% convinced that the Angels are going to trade Ohtani. But there seems to be a lot of talk about them doing it, and there seems to be no chance, it sounds like, no chance he's going to re-sign with the Angels. And I go back to this argument as it pertains to hockey, Kev. If you have no chance to sign the guy and you're not going to make the playoffs, and the chances that they're making the playoffs are remote, it is franchise suicide not to trade him much as you can for.
I would trade him if I was the Angels. I'll tell you though, now that I read that, that story about the guy that has been studying draft picks for, 25 years or so, 30 years, the kind of trade I would do is I would trade him to a team that could give me back a young player that's already in the majors. Yep. Like this idea of getting their top 5 draft picks. Well, this guy, through data proves that simply doesn't work. Right. That it's too difficult in baseball with an 18-year-old draft, and the chances. You just don't know. In my hometown here in Detroit, the importance of Torkelson and Mize and Skubal and everything, and they've all had setbacks.
Give me a young player under control for a certain amount of years.
Right. That's the deal you got to make.
The Red Sox deal with the Dodgers was widely panned, but if you look at it after the fact, they did get Verdugo, who's still one of their outfielders and a decent player. They did get him as part of the deal. So if you could get, say, for example, if you're trading with the Dodgers and you get Will Smith or like one of their younger players who's already or one of their pitchers. Then here's where the Angels, I think, may be overstepping their bounds. They're like, well, Ohtani is the best hitter available at the deadline, and he also is the best pitcher, so we should get double. No. It's one player. I know he's great.
No. You got to do better than that.
Yeah, more than one player.
This guy is they're right to request that sort of return.
We're just saying you've got to have one rock solid player in this
right, at least one or two,
one or two, and then the rest can be that. That's all.
Or even just a regular baseball trade, like you get one young top player, and then you get 2 guys who play regularly, because teams are going to do that. Like if it comes down to the Dodgers versus the Padres versus the Yankees,
here's the bigger story. What are the Yankees? Right now, they're in last place. Your thoughts?
Right.
Your thoughts on the last place Yankees?
I think they miss Aaron Judge desperately. The injuries have killed them. Trading for bad players like Josh Donaldson have killed them. Now he's hurt. They had young players who had Oswaldo Peraza, who had an okay spring training. Instead of playing him at the major league level, they sent him down to AAA, and he did good in AAA, but they kept him down there until July. And now that Volpe's hitting 215, Giancarlo Stanton and LeMahieu were having bad years. The funny thing is their pitching has been pretty good. Their bullpen has been great. The one thing that you would not expect the Yankees to struggle with has been their offense. Their offense has been terrible. So they need Judge back. Supposedly it's close for them coming back. I'm assuming they're probably going to make some sort of trade at the deadline to add some offense. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
I mean, if you've got Judge and Ohtani, you can make up a lot of ground.
Yeah. I just don't know, because Ohtani clearly, from everything that has been reported, he doesn't want to play on the East Coast. It would purely be a rental. Yeah. And the Angels are not going to say there's not going to be a rental price and a re-sign price. They want a high price, as you were just saying before. So I don't think the Yankees are going to trade Volpe or Peraza or Jason Dominguez, their best prospect who's in AA right now. I don't think they're going to trade those guys. So, and if they don't think they have a chance to sign them, I don't know. I would be shocked if they get Ohtani, but it would be an injection of something good in their lineup and their rotation. So we'll see. Okay, let's get started. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, July 19th, 2023.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Detroit Hockey Now.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start again. We started with this on Monday, but we're sort of just like twiddling our thumbs, biding our time, waiting for this Carlson deal to happen. I know Elliot Friedman came out. He does a weekly spot on NHL Network, and he came out and he said, basically, it's down to two teams. It doesn't sound like anybody else is in it. I know that, Ack is being told by some of his sources that, Toronto's in it. I don't think Toronto is in it at all. Edmonton, maybe they were in it at the deadline, but I don't think that they're in it now. I think it's Carolina and I think it's Pittsburgh. And the one thing that Friedman said, Kev, that was really interesting is that for Carolina to do it, not only do they have to get San Jose to retain $3.5-4 million, something like that, that they have to have contingencies in place to move out either Pesci or Teravainen in deals to other teams to make it all work, which would mean also San Jose doesn't want to take salaries back. And that's where I think that, with Pittsburgh, I think that complicates things with Pittsburgh too, because we would think that they would want to send Petrie back, and if they don't want Petrie either. So, this is
the Penguins have made it clear that they can't make the deal without sending Petrie.
Right.
So, this makes a lot more sense from the Penguins' perspective for this reason. Like, it's almost like they've said, we're all in, and then looked over and said, oh, I still got $400,000 or $500,000 I need to push in as well. We're going even more all in than we were before. We're going to take a 33-year-old to go with our 35 and older group. And, it makes sense. There's no one in Pittsburgh is talking about their prospects. They're talking about, trying to win it all again. And so, so that's why I think it's going to get done. I think San Jose is going to have to take Petrie, who's only 2 years and not 4. Plus you got to play somebody, you got to have a defenseman back there. So, and he's a veteran guy, a good guy. I think, that makes sense. And they're also going to have to eat some salary a little bit anyway. So I think the Penguins will figure out how to get it done. I really do, because Dubas, as you have pointed out several times, is not fearful of giving up draft picks. He'll give the first round pick he wants, probably a second round pick. I don't think he'll give up 2. But I think they'll be able to make it happen. That's just my guess. But I think I don't see Carolina getting that done.
Russ?
Yeah, I don't see Carolina getting it done either, because, like I said, I think there was a limit to the money that they could spend. Then they were going to have to do something with Pesci. if for some reason they don't get Carlson, then you'll see they'll sign D'Angelo quickly, and that'll be that. I think that's their fallback, and I think that's going to end up happening. Whether he goes to Pittsburgh, I don't know. I mean, I think Kevin's right. That's their best bet. Am I convinced he's getting traded this summer? No, I'm not convinced.
Yeah, and Michael Cohen in the chat is saying that Luke Fox of Sportsnet is saying the Leafs are in on it. I haven't seen that report, and Luke's a good reporter, but I'm just looking at right now the Leafs are, I think, $8 million over the cap. They couldn't do the deal. I mean, even if they trade Nylander in the deal, they couldn't do the deal. Even if they trade Nylander and Brody in the deal, again, we've established that San Jose likely doesn't want to take contracts back, even though Brody's only got a year left. And you don't know whether Nylander wants to sign long-term in San Jose. So those are all factors. I just don't think, first of all, Brad Treliving doesn't particularly, and he's already signed a right-handed offense-first defenseman in John Klingberg. And he's looking for big, tough defensemen, which is, he said it when I was up in Toronto during their development camp. He's looking for size on the blue line, and Carlson doesn't fit that description. And really, how many offensive defensemen can you have on one team? So I don't think that's realistic.
The answer is 3.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah. No, it's not. I don't think.
I mean, why are you saying no?
No. I'm just saying offense first defenseman.
Yeah, you can have 3 of them.
Yeah, I think that's one too many. Maybe 2, not 3. And sticking with the Leafs here for a second, again, Elliot was reporting about the Ilya Samsonov. I mean, we're going to hear arbitration hearings, and we're going to hear mostly settlements. 90% of the time, these arbitration hearings end in settlements before the hearing even takes place or just after. Ilya Samsonov, who had a really good year with Toronto last year, 920 save percentage, got them through the first round with Tampa, then got hurt. The Leafs offered $2.4 million, and Samsonov asked for $4.9 million. So you could drive a Mack truck, Kev, through the hole. But that's normal. And I've said for a month, I think he's going to end up with a 1-year deal at around $3.5 to $4 million. Friedman said that the Leafs might be looking to sign him for 3 years. If that's the case, buying 2 years of unrestricted free agency, he's probably going to get around $4 million. I mean,
more for that.
Yeah, probably more for, and that's where I'm scared here, because paying him $4.5 to $5 million, he's had one really good steady year. It was last year, but he's only had one, so that's what would give me pause. Well, Kevin, what do you think of that situation?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I wouldn't commit long term to him. I mean, Brian McCullum knows what he's doing in Washington, and he was happy to have him out of his life. So, there wasn't a lot of trust there.
Right.
But he did perform well. He did do that. So, why not just give him another 1-year deal and see what happens?
Well, I'll give you the reason why not. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I might do it too. But Treliving just got there. This team has had goaltending trouble for 2-3 years now. And there's 2 ways to look at it. If he goes and has another great year, well, now he's got a bigger problem, because he should have signed him for 4.2 or whatever for 3 or 4 years now, because now next year he's going to get 6 or more and still want 3 or 4 more years. So there's really, if you believe he's good, you've got to sign him now to a longer term deal, simply because you're going to be in the same boat again.
Right.
And be worse off. Now, is there a chance that you could be out of this because he doesn't have a good year? Sure. But then you're in that boat again where you need another goalie. So
but he didn't have a great year, though. You know what I mean? Like, it isn't like it wasn't.
No,
you watched it,
Not every goalie can deal with it either. Like, again, just like, Ryan O'Reilly didn't like the spotlight at Toronto. Not every goalie likes the spotlight either. Like,
well, okay, he had a 27-10-5 record. Goals against was 2.33. Save percentage was 919. He got hurt a couple times, but that's a pretty good year. But that's playing half a season. Now, I think the advantage, Kev, is that the Leafs, and the organization likes Joseph Woll and thinks Joseph Woll can at least be a tandem goalie. They got him locked up for 2 more years at under $800,000. So if they think he's a guy who can play 30 to 35 games, and then they're only spending, say, $5 million on 2 goalies, then that puts them in pretty good shape. Now, I don't know how good that tandem is going to be, but in terms of spending money, that's not bad. Now, they have to rectify the Matt Murray situation. I personally think it's going to be a buyout, but they might be able to convince somebody to take him on in a trade, or maybe they put him on LTIR and send him to Robidoux Island. But they're going to have to rectify that situation before the season starts.
Yeah, I mean, it really, with Samsonov, it just comes down to a guess. And of course, sports is always a guess. Like, no matter what, how long you've been in the game and everything, you got to make these kind of decisions where, like I would say, if you went around the NHL, half the people would say they think what Samsonov did last season is an indication that, this is who the goalie is. And the other half would say, well, I don't think so, so it's just going to be a judgment call. We'll see which way the Maple Leafs fall on it. Like, I would not, I just wouldn't feel comfortable on a length deal. I guess 2 years is not the end of the world, but 3 years, no, I'm not there.
No, but again, if he has the same year, if he just has the same year again this year, it's 3 years or he's going somewhere else. Like that.
Well, I think he's got to have a better year this year though, because he's going to play more games. So
right. So even if he has just a slightly better year, 3 years is going to be the minimum next year. Like,
but some guys are good if they only play, fewer games. Like when suddenly you got to play 52 or 53. Suddenly then it becomes a little more difficult for you to maintain that percentage. So, and
based on the availability of goaltenders next summer, he's probably number 2 behind Hellebuck in terms of free agent goaltenders. So if he has a big year, then he probably will get around $6 million. So you could say the Leafs would be proactive. If they could cut it down the middle and buy 1 year of unrestricted free agency and get him on a 2-year deal, that's probably the best thing. But obviously, anybody's going to want as many years as they can get their hands on. So, I mean, we'll see what's going to happen. We may find out that answer tomorrow or on Friday, because the hearing is on Friday. A contract extension was announced this morning, not surprisingly after their success in the postseason in their second year. But Dave Hackstall, Russ, gets a 2-year, I believe it was 3-year extension. It's an extension through the 25-26 season. I'm not sure. I think he had a year left on his current deal. So it's a 2-year extension. No money has been released, but clearly, I mean, he had limited success in Philadelphia. He did pretty well as an assistant under Mike Babcock and then Sheldon Keefe in Toronto. And he goes to the expansion Kraken and does pretty well in the first 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been good at developing players and playing and dealing with young players. And that's something where that had to be part of it with Seattle because they had it. Now, maybe because of that time with the Leafs, he did learn a few more things to deal with the veterans better, or maybe even guys with bigger egos. And that's good too. So I think this is warranted. And I think, he's turned into a really good coach. And they were smart to do this because right now they are a team on the upswing, and they quote unquote did it the right way. And you can't say they're not a good team, and they have young players coming in too.
Cav, your thoughts?
Oh, I don't even know where to go with this. Mostly I just agree with Russ. Where else? What else is there to say?
Yeah, no, I think okay. I don't think he's a superstar coach. I don't think he's I'm not sure if he's a coach that is going to win you a Stanley Cup, but I didn't think Jared Bednar was going to win a Stanley Cup until he won a Stanley Cup. So it's more about talent acquisition. I still think Seattle in some areas needs a lot of improvement. I don't have a lot of confidence in their goaltending, but you have to give Hackstall a lot of credit. He put together a system in Seattle that sort of covered up for average goaltending and got them by a wounded Colorado team and got them to the second round of the playoffs in their second year. So I give him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
I just
that balanced scoring, like the balanced scoring was the key for them.
Yeah, I mean, he did some things that were a little bit different, like, and I'm dealing with this in Detroit because I think there's a question now, like, what do they do with Sprong? Like, Sprong was a scorer on the fourth line.
Right.
He was in and out of the lineup, and but they put together almost a scoring fourth line. Not everybody does that. They like a traditional checking line. So what is Derek Lalonde going to do with him in Detroit? Does he move him up on a scoring line and the second line because they got him because he scored some goals, or does he just keep him down the fourth line and do with Sprong what?
I would do the same thing. I mean, he's always had a good shot. It's just the rest of his game wasn't complete or better,
Right.
And maybe he has figured that out. I mean, he's not that old. So
well, he didn't completely figure it out because he was a healthy scratch quite a few times. But saying all that, like, he has said that he is much more mindful of his defensive game.
Right. I mean, he was nothing when he first came up, but he was all offense. Like, and you saw he scored, goals early on too in his career, but coaches just didn't want to deal with him. Now I think they're more willing to do it because he's comes in at a cheaper price, and if you do play him on the fourth line and you get 15 goals out of him, that's a bonus.
Yeah. And I think the league is kind of split on Hextall, just in terms of, I think a lot of people think he does a good job, and other people think he's just an average coach. So,
well, I think the thing that's helped Hextall is Francis has done a good job, and the scouting staff has done a good job. And so now, besides Beniers, there's going to be a few more guys coming on, soon. So Shane Wright might be the next one, maybe next year, maybe the year after. So if they could keep doing that helps that coach a lot.
Well, and the thing about that is none of us are really sure how Francis did such a good job. Like,
that's true.
I mean, he came out of the expansion draft, and I just admire Ron Francis as a human being and as a former player. Like, he was such a classy player on the ice, and just a tremendous player. And every time I've dealt with him when he was in Carolina, he was just a classy man. So I liked everything about him. And then I just scratched my head over his expansion draft thinking, man, he just didn't do a good job. And then next thing you know, you look at his roster and, he's got a bunch of guys that could play. And he picked the right coach to bring that group together. I mean, say what you want about Hextall as a coach, but he got it done. So I'm not sure how Ron Francis did it, but you cannot argue with the results.
Well,
and
he's not like Jared McCann locked up, which maybe some people didn't like, but it was smart.
Well, okay, he took a different tactic than what George McPhee did in Vegas, because McPhee, I think he played on sort of the, maybe inexperience of some of his compatriots in the GM world, or their willingness to, or their eagerness to dump contracts, like, say, William Karlsson taking on David Clarkson's deal in Columbus, and that was LTIR money, or the very famous Riley Smith, Jonathan Marchessault deal with Florida. Francis didn't do that. What he did was, when there was no good available option, like, I can't remember the guy, was it the guy from San Jose? There was a Jeff True or something like that. It was some guy who was a minor leaguer.
Yeah, Alexander True.
Alexander True. So instead of taking like Vlasic or taking somebody who was exposed, who made serious money, he didn't burden his cap with players. He just took somebody that he absolutely had to, and then the following year, he either took guys in the expansion draft that he signed to extensions, or then waited the following summer and then went after Burakovsky and guys like that. So he sort of kept his powder dry.
Yeah, think about this. So Jared McCann is tied up for like the next 5 years, I think, for $5 million. He's a 40-goal scorer. Name me another 40-goal scorer that's making like $5 million. Like,
you think he'll be a 40-goal scorer next year?
Well, I mean, he had 33 even strength goals, so I think he can, because only 7 were on the power play.
Wow.
I think that's fair. I'm just not that he wasn't a good signing because he was. I'm just saying I don't think he's a 40 goal.
No, I think he's I think he's between a 25 to 30 goal scorer. I think he's actually taken a big step, and he's better than he was when he was in Pittsburgh. Right. But
it's a weird thing with McCann. I mean, he did go bottom of the first round. I had him ranked higher than 24th, I think, and he kicked around a little bit. But even with Pittsburgh, like he had 14 goals, and then first year Seattle, 27 goals. Well, he was a minus 26 that year, but then the team was bad too. He didn't take – here's the funny thing. That year, he took 199 shots, and he had 27 goals. This year, he only took 210 shots, and he still had 40 goals. He can take more shots.
Right.
Conceivably. So that's why I think he can get close to that again.
Right.
210 shots is not a lot.
There's no guarantee, Russ, that he's going to – like he could shoot 300 shots and then score 20 goals. Like everything went in.
That's less likely, I think.
Right. Everything went in this year. He had a career
year. The
year
before, too, 27 is a good number. Like that's –
yeah.
Sure. I just don't think people are acknowledging. I think it's, it's taken a little while here, and maybe because he's in Seattle, that I don't think people acknowledge his talent enough. I think it's the same as Carter Verhaeghe. It took 2 or 3 years, and everybody's like, okay, I guess Verhaeghe is a star now.
Yeah.
Well, I
don't think people are still saying he's a star, but I think people are respecting him more.
I think you should say he's a star. He's another guy. He's like their third best player. Like, well, what else is he?
Yeah.
I think he's a very good player. I don't know if he's a star. I mean,
I guess it depends on your definition of a star.
It's really how you categorize people. So, okay, Russ, you wanted to bring up the Martin Kaut story in San Jose.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the Kaut, but I'm looking quickly at Verhaeghe. One website I really dislike that they still have playoff stats. Like, guys, we're not in the playoffs anymore.
As the default stat?
As the default, please. Yeah. Please don't do that to us. We need regular season stats during the summer. Thank you. All right. Anyhow, so Verhaeghe, he had 42 goals. Again, 24 the year before. If 42 goals does not make you a star, I'm not sure. Unless this isn't the
1 year.
But if
he scores 40 goals again, then I'll use the S word. It's 1 year.
But he had 24 the year before.
I know 24 is a good year. So Michael Bunting had 23. Is he a star?
He's got 93 goals in 254 games. Like that's better, way better than Michael Bunting.
Well, let me just put it: is Jeff Skinner a star?
He was at one time.
Yeah, see, I don't think he was ever a star. So.
Oh, he was an all-star. I think he was a star.
Well, being a star and being a star are two different things.
I know, but I do think he was a star in the league for a couple of those big years in Carolina.
I think Jeff Skinner's a very good winger. He had a big year. Yeah. The year before free agency, he cashed in. Ralph Kruger screwed him and put him on the fourth line. Now he's back to being a very good player. But that's the thing. He's not a star. He just isn't. Jack Eichel was the star. He was.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I think we're just. I think Russ is right. I mean, those guys are very good players. Even Skinner was a good player at the time. Definition of star for me is like nobody's collecting Verhaeghe rookie cards.
Right. Or
nobody's collecting. We'll find that out, Kev.
Nobody's collecting Skinner rookie cards. Those kinds of things.
Well, Skinner, no, because he had a few off years. We'll find out at the National if they are collecting Verhaeghe.
I have a bunch of
Frank on that. Even though the Panthers are not the best team to collect.
I have a bunch of Frank Viola rookies, Russ. I'll trade them all for
a couple Cy Youngs. Anyhow.
Okay, Martin Kaut.
Martin Kaut. There was an article in the Mercury News from Curtis Pashelka, the Hockey Writers Association, put it up on the feed, and I kind of saw that. And then Sheng Peng did a better job of getting somebody who was Czech to kind of go through the article and make sure that Google didn't sort of like add stuff or whatever. And there's some things in here that are really bad. And one of them was, did they make you fight in the AHL? And Martin Kaut said, one of the coaches picked out an opponent for me before. Now, he said before each game. Now, that's the thing that seems to be in question, and I was supposed to fight him. I remember one time he pointed to the Calgary Wranglers, Adam Kapla, and the kid's 230, 6'8". I'm supposed to fight him. Now, his point was he already had 3 concussions and 2 shoulder surgeries. So why would that team want him to fight him? And so, I get that. And he also talked about the fact that he felt isolated and, in San Jose, which, again, I do think teams, when they have guys, even in the AHL, when they have guys from other countries, I do think you have to be mindful of that. So those two combinations pretty much, are getting him out of the game now. And it's a shame because Martin Kaut had a lot of talent. He also had that heart condition, and he came back from that. And now he's going to go play overseas again. And now he's like, he's going to be more comfortable playing now. And he's only 23. Like, we might see him again,
Right.
but it's just one of those tales. And I just, I feel bad about it. I do. And again, the Barracuda can, say this is true or this isn't true, but obviously some of it's true. And it's just, this is the kind of thing that I think has to get removed from the game. Like, I think, because Kev, I think once you ask a guy like that, knowing his injury history, even if you're asking him to fight once and he's not really a fighter, you're now putting him in a bad spot. And you're
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if any of this is true, and you would guess it is, I mean, even if there was some exaggeration to the every game thing, which is what a lot of people are saying, but did he, but it seems where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, something happened there. He had the impression that they wanted him to fight. Even if they would argue they didn't use those exact words, but yeah, and it's it just wasn't his style, obviously, and he didn't feel comfortable. But that story, if you read the translation, goes beyond even asking him to fight, just about the isolation, as Russ pointed out, and he just felt alone, like he was here by himself, and he didn't blend well with the team and so forth. So it's a sad tale, because we just automatically think that guys come over from Europe and it's one big giant melting pot of a league, but it's not always. There's cultural differences and there's language barriers for sure. Czechs and Russians traditionally have had more difficulty than Scandinavian players in terms of learning the language and so forth. So I mean, it's too bad, because he was a skilled player. He wanted to play in the NHL. And this all happened this past season. This isn't ancient history. So
No.
He was traded at the deadline.
Yeah.
So it happened in the last 20, 25 games of the season. So
this feeling was, am I supposed to fight someone just for the sake of it? I'm supposed to be on the ice to score goals. And I get it. Like, he wasn't going to be that guy. Now, I understand some guy's path is that. I don't know what my sound is. And I wish even that would kind of get cut down, but I don't want to cut down someone's dream. So if that is the only way someone can make it to the NHL, I don't want to be the guy that says, well, do it differently because, there's zero fighting. But I just don't think you should be putting players that are definitely not known for fighting in that position.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen instances over, the decades of players who were scorers in junior who ended up becoming more physical players in the NHL because that was their role. But really, I think that's sort of gone by the wayside now. You can't really, fighting isn't that important in the game anymore. I mean, I love a good fight, but I don't think it's so important that you're going to force a player who clearly doesn't want to do it or isn't good at it to do it. So
here's another quote. I told them during the exit interviews, I played against them for 5 years. They know me, and I've never fought. Why are they suddenly asking me to do this? They said they wanted to get something more out of me.
Yeah. Sorry, Russ.
No, I just, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah. A couple things before we end the show. Here. I always, when I see these summer top 50, top 100 prospects things, I always look at them with an eye sort of askance because of what I would call recency bias. And clearly the list that came out from The Athletic a couple days ago is a clear sign of this, Russ, because 5 of the top 7 picks in the recent draft in Nashville are the top 5 prospects in this draft. Now, I'm not quibbling at Connor Bedard. He's generational. I think we all think that. Obviously Fantilli and Mishkov. I'm just reading off the list. Will Smith, and Leo Carlson. They were the top 5, not in that order, but
Right.
they were the top 5. Number 6 on the list, the first 19-year-old on the list was Logan Cooley. And that's where I have a problem because, like, if you look at Nemec or Juracek or Cooley or some of the guys who were drafted in last year's draft who have a year of experience either in the NCAA or the American Hockey League or Europe, to me, they're better prospects, at least than not Bedard, but maybe than Fantilli or maybe Carlson, because they're a year closer to the NHL and they've got that pro experience and their star hasn't fallen. They didn't have bad years in those places.
Yeah, I would say this. Right now, today, and this is today, there's no projections. Right now, today, Logan Cooley is better than Adam Fantilli. Now, Fantilli did win the Hobey Baker in the same league. I get it. I would give you the argument he had a better team, but both were on really good teams. But I do think as far as just translating to the NHL game, I think this moment, Cooley's a little better. Do I think that's going to change? Yeah, it might even change next year.
Right.
But I just feel that way. I get with Carlson because I just wrote about him for Full Press, and he did play in the SHL. He was great in the playoffs there, so I don't have a problem with any of it. But I do think Cooley's on the cusp there, and Luke Hughes is another one that now you have to kind of put in that group too. He's proved a fair amount already. So, but we're quibbling. I'm not against it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's, I mean, okay, I'll just say it. Cooley, Nemec, Hughes, Juracek, Brandt Clark, and 11 was Edvinsson. That was 6 through 11. So everybody who had a year or 2 years of experience, either in junior or the AHL or Europe or whatever, they were listed after the top of the 5 of the top 7 picks. So I like I said, I mean, I'm not saying
I might argue. I might put like Cutter Gauthier there ahead of even Brandt Clark because I think Clark still needs more developing.
right.
And Gauthier is pretty close now. He's like a year away, after this season.
Right.
I think Clark needs a little more work on his defense. His offense is tremendous, and I really like him. But I think Cutter Gauthier might be in that list. I think that's the only other guy.
Okay. One last thing here. And I'm not going to say the name of the person who made the report. I'll let everybody go out and look for themselves at that, and I won't say what I think of that person. But there was a report last week that came out that said there were going to be significant changes at for Sportsnet for the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast. That Ron McLean wasn't going to be back, and people like Kevin Bieksa and Kelly Rudy and Jen Bottrell and a few other people would not be back. And over the last couple of days, Ron McLean came out and said, "I'm coming back," and Kevin Bieksa came back and said, "I'm coming back." And I just have to say, for the person who did that reporting, tell your source, whoever that is, whether they be alive or dead, that they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, I think it's hard to have a source in something like TV negotiations because, for one thing, it's not like it's easy to get the answers from a network, right? So you're either getting it from an agent of one of those people or maybe somebody who works in the business. But those are like guesses. And you really can't put that out there because, again, I just think, and again, in negotiations, there's always this like line in the sand thing. Well, if we don't get this, maybe I'm not going to do this job next year, and maybe that was said. And maybe that person was thinking, oh, they're not going to be there next year. Well, guess what? Then they came to terms, right? Because then the company said, okay, you know what? Let's meet halfway. Well, you know what I mean? That's the way those negotiations go. So I just think if there was a good source, it was reported too early.
Yeah. We'll go with that. We'll end with that. All right. For the departed Kevin Allen and for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.